All right. Welcome back to another exciting episode of the HHC podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Moreno, and I'm here with my brother Chris. Chris, Happy New Year's. We are
Yeah,
finally in the year 2023 with the HHC podcast. How are you doing?
I'm good. Happy New Year, Jake. It's been a good. I had a good break. I had a good Christmas break. I mean, we're already back to work and all that kind of stuff. But had a good time with some family. Got to travel. Got to pick up some good Spurs swag along the way. This is one of my pickups over
Oh,
the break.
wow.
um,
Nice shirt. I like the Timmy on it.
yeah. But yeah, doing good. Excited for this is episode 60 of our show. So we're chugging along. I know this year's been an adventure because of the nature of the team and all that kind of stuff, and then also where we kind of are. We're kind of split a little bit, right? So just making it work. So no, I'm excited for a lot of good stuff in 23. So having a good time.
hmm Exactly. No, I'll say for me, like it was, uh, not the worst thing in the world, but it was just a little disappointing I wasn't able to like have 2 weeks worth of videos out for the podcast. It was Christmas and it was New Year's in back-to-back weeks, and I don't think anybody's gonna fault anyone for not getting stuff out during that time. I was working on Christmas with the Texas Tech football team, so it's not like I wasn't doing anything on those days of the
Mm-hmm.
that we didn't have the podcast,
I wasn't doing anything.
but
Actually on Christmas Day, I was on the road back over here.
oh yeah, yeah, right. Because so I mean, we're all doing things, we're all living our life, and it's not the end of the world that the podcast doesn't happen, but for sure, I'm excited to be able to be back on the podcast. Once again, I try to make sure that I'm doing this consistently every week to have something out to talk about Spurs basketball every week. So
Hmm.
uh, but you know, with that consistency, we do come to you guys every Sunday at the 10 a.m.s, where we do go live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. All of which you can find us under the tag of the Heroes in a Half Court name. Make sure that you do follow us on Twitter at Heroes Half Court, where we do talk about the Spurs pretty much day to day whenever the games are going on or whenever there's a lot of stuff whenever there's just things talking about us. So we do love to have the engagement with the Spurs community about anything Spurs related. So don't mind talking to us on the Twitter. Before we do fully get into this podcast, just want to give Trey Jones a happy birthday shout out.
Oh,
It is I believe year 23 for our young point guard, and that's exciting. That's exciting stuff. I've always been an advocate for Trey Jones. The second we drafted him, I was a big advocate as to this guy could be very key rotational piece on this team. And so he's been our starting point guard this year. He's been having to do above and beyond this year, and I've been loving every single second of it. Chris, how do you feel about Trey? How do you any bright spots you've seen from him this year? Anything that really points like sticks out to you?
I mean, nothing that we haven't said so far this year, right? I mean, his decision making skills is something that you're happy that we can rely on in big portions of the game because we know with a young team that there's going to be times where there's carelessness on the court and uh misdirection on the court, and you know what I mean, just things not working properly, right? So any stability we can get, we're going to take, and so for him to take on that responsibility as the point guard and all that kind of stuff, yes, that's what we've loved from him all year. His energy, uh willingness to continue to push to the rim, right? No matter, and we've seen it all now. We've seen the teams that go a little smaller. We see the teams that stay big, and we've seen the big it shock him or trouble him sometimes, but he'll keep trying, right? So love his energy, love his motor, all that kind of stuff. Happy birthday to him as well.
Exactly. So, um, you know, and we try to appreciate all the individual guys, all the accolades that we can for like just the single guys on this team because this is a rebuilding team and it doesn't always look the best. Is at the moment we're winless in the new year, and
Hmm.
you know, I don't think the games have necessarily been bad, but you're not always happy being having a losing streak going starting off in 2023. And Chris, how do you feel about the games that have happened just from 2023 and on? Like what have you like been able to see and been able to catch over the last little bit?
Yeah, and I put winless in the new year, and to be honest, we did get a dub over Detroit, and that's my bad for. So I'll change that here in a second, right?
That that is
But
a win, but I don't really. I want to talk about the teams that actually are
yeah,
competing in the
I
league
mean, yeah,
that we
I know. But
obviously.
just for the fact of it, for the fact of matter, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, of course, of course.
But just in general, I mean, again, I know we've talked about being on break and stuff like that. So, uh, um, the I've gotten to watch. I'm looking through it now. I've gotten to watch the Nets, the Knicks, the Pistons, Celtics. Um, I've gotten to watch a little bit. Oh, and the Mavs of all of the games, but none of them did I get to watch the full game. Right. So just take that with a grain of salt. Right. Not getting to see the full patterns and the flow of the game, just getting to see kind of spurts. But I've enjoyed the energy. I mean, right now we're in like we've been kind of without Devin, right? So we've kind of had to settle into or we finally got to settle into a little bit more of like Romeo and kind of seeing and then like Jay Rich taking the big, just getting a lot of minutes right now. So I like the era that we're in. I like, you know what I mean. Sometimes we get a little sloppy again, right? It's kind of what I was saying before, but it's been good so far. To see us compete with Boston was great. I got to watch. I had to watch the highlights on it this morning because I only got to watch literally like we tied the game with like a 3-pointer I think in the last like 10 seconds of the game. That's literally all I got to hear of it last night on the audio. Um, so you know some of the same stuff from the beginning of the year, right? We're competing with good teams. Um, we're catching like the Mavericks. They're running Luca into the ground a little bit at the moment. So we're benefiting from some of that kind of stuff. Brooklyn kicked the crap out of us, but anyways. So just
Yeah.
a bunch of the same, I would say.
No, you're talking about like, just the way that we're fighting and stuff like that. And I think there's two things that I really want to like bring up from the Boston game. Like they had these graphics, right? And there was one graphic that was showing like a bunch of efficiencies and stuff like that. Just like a bunch of numbers, like where we are at in terms of like, in a sense, like offensive efficiency, defensive things, like whatever, right? And almost everything on that list was like 30th and then 29th for like one of them. So
Hmm.
we're at the very bottom when it comes to like our numbers. When it comes to like when you look at the numbers game, we're literally like the worst team in the league.
Yeah.
But we're not the worst record in the league, and I'm not going to tell you that we're worse than a team like the Rockets or worse than a Cade Cunningham-less Detroit Pistons. Again,
Yeah.
that's why I don't necessarily care about the Pistons because they don't even have. I mean, they have like a Jalen Durant to look forward to, but they don't even have their star player that they're like trying to build up in this year. And
Hmm.
it's like I'm not worried about a Detroit Pistons team compared to like how we would play against the Knicks or how we would play against a team like the Mavericks. And the Nets and the Celtics are a little bit better than those two teams. But if we can put up a fight, then that's good too, right? Um, and so uh, us being like the worst numbers team in the league, but still not being like the very worst team record wise, to me it shows us signs of just like these guys are going to be fighting every day. They're not going to be they might not have the talent of the Rockets. They might not have the talent of the Pistons. If you add in a Cade Cunningham, right? They're not going to have the talent of like the bottom four teams in the league, but we're definitely going to be fighting like we are literally one of the better teams.
And
And
that's what gives you the like the hope, right, of what it's gonna look like later, and that it's gonna turn at some point, right? So
mhm.
uh
And so like, look back at the young guys who are fighting for those times. I think a guy like Romeo Langford is literally the embodiment of how, like, the like everybody in this team is should be working, because Romeo is fighting out there. He's being a dog through the weeks that he's been able to get
Yeah,
minutes,
I mean, the good thing is, if I think about it, right, so far this year, I mean, have you seen anybody who doesn't look like they're trying to maximize their time? It just feels like it's been up to what era are we in, of what like Pop is trying to keep out on the court. Like that's what's been dictating. And yeah, obviously injuries is a thing of that too, right? And it's the coaching staff that navigates that. That's what I mean. But I don't think that anybody's like felt like that, right, on the negative side, like that they're not trying hard enough. It's just who's been able to maximize their time, right? And then who has been able to kind of sometimes break through that system and be like, well, we need to play Romeo a little bit more because he's just working through it. You know what I'm saying? So uh, uh, um,
Exactly.
I've enjoyed everybody's time. And then it's just been interesting, like the closer and closer we get to February or trade deadline kind of time. Um, just I just keep thinking about it, like on my notes. I have Josh Richardson and Doug McDermott, like their names are right next to each other in the document, and I always just group my notes for them together because they're just the vets, right? And it's just like, okay, we just feel like, okay, we're rolling. How much longer? Like, are we gonna be in this era with Doug and with Josh and who else? We'll see.
And we made our trade, or not our like single trade of the year, but like we were the first people to make a trade this year. And that's a good deal. Like it's a good sign for us, because it means that we're going to be active through this trade deadline, and there's been a lot of talks about who's going to get traded, what are they going to get traded for, all this stuff throughout the league about like everybody on every team. There's no one that I feel like they haven't heard a single report from a single team that's like, oh, they're not looking to trade anybody. It's like everybody's looking to make some deal at this trade deadline,
Hmm.
but nobody's like, because of the trades in the offseason, nobody is at this point of, well, do we make this trade? This team, the Timberwolves just traded 4 first round picks for Rudy Gobert, and are we expected to be trading 2 picks for somebody who's not Rudy Gobert? Like,
Yeah.
and then look at how bad Rudy Gobert has been for the Timberwolves. So it's stuff like that where um that the market's really been like scrambled in that sense. Nobody really has like a set value right now, and we were kind of not necessarily setting a value, but we're at least making a trade to start something. You know, to start getting something in place, and in the deal, we ended up saving money. We're end up just like doing a favor for the Celtics, but that also means that, like, because we're helping the Celtics out, that means that the Celtics will probably be looking to do something come trade deadline as well, right? We're literally like we are like the starting point of setting up the next like trades over the next like month and a half. And that's like exciting stuff, because, well, now that we started this, what are we going to start to look for when it comes to maybe trading Josh Richardson, maybe trading Doug McDermott, maybe trading Jakob?
So yeah, Jakob is a guy that like him coming back from his injury has kind of been during the break a little bit, and I haven't got to really like watch him specifically to kind of have an opinion on, like, is he back from his injury? How does he look? Like, what do you think? What have you seen from him so far since he's come back?
Well, I don't think anything's really changed for me, like, other than he's a really good defensive center. I'm going to be fighting to want to trade him for 2 picks if we're going to trade him. Like, if a deal is going to be set, I really hope that it's not going to be for just 1 first round pick and then move on. Like, I think Jakob is better than that, and I think that we could really get a good deal out of a guy as valuable that Yak is. So nothing's like lowered for him, and I think that we're probably just playing it conservative for him, just so that we can see what's out there for a trade with Yak, you know?
But just more on the court though. Like since he's come back, he's been doing okay.
Yeah, I mean he's there's only so much that a guy like Yak can do with his play style, with the way that he does. Like there is only so much that he can do in and out of like the on
Yeah,
offense, and then his defense is always, it's always going to be reliable. It's not like you're really angry at Yak for being out there. It's one of those things where you don't really have to like his play speaks for itself on the court because it's just that like the same type of play that it's been all year,
yeah.
and that's just dependable
I,
play.
I was I we were just talking earlier though about like Spurs being conservative, and I think this was before we went live. Just being conservative in general, right? About like getting people back on the court this year. So I just didn't know if they were if they were easing him back in, or if he's just back. Like if he looks like he's back and he feels good off the injury and all that kind of stuff. That's what I was curious to see or to hear.
I think
But
I think it does feel like he's just back. I mean, with the sad thing about like how Jakob when Jakob comes back compared to like how a guy like Devin or Keldon would come back is we have a plethora of wings that could like, fill in those minutes. So Keldon and Devin can kind of like ease their way back in.
yeah.
But
As
once
soon as Yax comes back, you got Zach Collins, like with his wide eyes, and he's all tired from getting pushed around by all the big centers.
exactly. So we don't necessarily have like the depth at that center position to be able to ease Yak into coming back. It's like once Yak is healthy, he's starting, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. It makes sense. Um, Zach Collins. I like Zach Collins, right? Like Zach Collins, and I know that I saw you guys for New Year's, and at that time I was being kind of dismissive of him that day. I remember I was like, I think I was just over him. I think I saw him get like bodied by somebody, and I was mad. But he's been shooting really well, right? And that's something that I got to see over this past couple of games. Um, and yeah, I think it's a no-brainer to say something like that. Like, well, if he's shooting really well, that's what's gonna keep him on the court, right? And yeah, for sure, that makes sense. But when you finally get to see it, we just haven't really got to see it, right? Where it's consistent like that. Um, it's been great. It's been great to see him have confidence out on on the 3-point line. Um, and it's been great to see the effects that it has on the team when he's shooting well, right? Uh, um, it's just the defense, overall. He's been trying hard. Again, like I said, nobody is gonna get that complaint from me. I don't think this year. It's just the size. You know what I mean? Um, Even last night, I mean, I got to watch the highlights, and Spurs are doing what they can to come back, even though their 3-point defense wasn't very good, from what I was looking at. But Zach Collins gives up the rebound to old Al Horford. You know what I'm saying? On a box, just box him out. You know what I mean? But it's like, stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like that's the stuff that just it hits me so hard. I'm like, that's the stuff that I don't want to put money into. I don't want to put time into something that's gonna feel like that. You know what I mean? It's like the same thing of
Yeah.
like you would always feel in the back of your head. It was much smaller, but like the fact that you had a guy like DeMar DeRozan, and then you were like, I can't 100% trust him in the clutch to make a free throw, and you just felt that, right? You know what I'm saying? And you wanted to root for him, and you're like, he's gonna make this, but you just felt that like, oh, he could miss, right? Um, and then it's like, dang, do I really want to put that much money into that feeling, right? And
Mhm.
that's how I feel for a guy like Zach Collins. And I know that it's just a backup center position at the end of the day, but uh,
So
go ahead.
me and Juan have been kind of talking about it through like the last couple weeks, and it's just like like what it is to have Zach Collins as your backup center, right? Because the way that Zach plays, his play style and the way that he goes out there on the court, it's not traditional to what the backup center is. The backup center is usually a guy who plays defense and can kind of like run in transition, catch lobs, be any type of lob threat that you need to just be able to get up and score around the rim. That is like generally what the backup center is going to do. And Zach Collins neither of those things. He doesn't go around the rim. He doesn't dunk the ball like that. And then he's not your defensive
He
anchor
gotta
on
he
your second
gotta he
unit.
gotta put back dunk on a trail yesterday.
Well, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen, but it's not his play style. His play style is he's gonna get the ball around the mid range. He's gonna want to make his own move so that he feels comfortable and shoot the ball, like from a 10-footer type thing where it's not the most efficient shot in the world, especially coming from a guy like Zach, right? And um or I guess coming from a center spot, not necessarily from a guy like Zach, because he does practice that, and that is his move in that sense, right? But he has to be perfect at doing that if he wants to be, if that's like, the type of role that he wants to fit in, which is the offensive center who can't really play defense, who does not rim run. And
Yeah, but it's just been tough because, like you're saying, him making his own move off the dribble or whatever. It's like he'll be going against guys that are just bigger than him, so he'll try to
mhm.
spin around them, and then they're just still right in front of him. You know what I mean? And any
and
contact, it's affecting his shot.
and it's one of those things for me where like I said, I was talking to Juan, and it's like, don't get me wrong, I like Zach Collins, but I'm not wanting to watch a Spurs game to see us make a whole setup play for Zach Collins in the post. It could happen. It could work. It's fine. And it's not like I'm saying like I'm not saying don't set up plays for Zach Collins to score, but I'm saying I don't want to see a play where it's like you're literally playing a to me what I had seen in the last 3 years, 4 years of us dishing the ball down to a guy like LaMarcus, to
Yeah.
a guy like Timmy, and then now we're running those plays for a guy like Zach. It's who like you go from Tim Duncan to LaMarcus Aldridge
But
to
again,
Zach
again,
Collins.
in that regard too, it's like I don't trust him to beat another center off the dribble too many times. I don't trust him to back anybody down. Um, you know what I'm saying? And that's just on the offensive end, you know what I mean? And again, like I like what he brings. I would I would be down I would be down with him being on the roster. I'm just talking, you know what I mean, at the end of the day. But it's just like a game like New York, right? New York had Julius Randle, uh is his Mitchell Robinson, is that his name?
Yeah,
And then one other guy. He's like their third string big, but he was a big guy. Um and we had Zach Collins, and that's it. I don't even I can't remember well, Yak as the backup, right? So Yak goes in and Yak does his thing, and then we get Collins coming in, and Collins has to go in against like two bigs. It felt like, and then it's just like putting our team in a position to feel very stressed and working so hard for like extended minutes. That's where it's like I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? Because then it's like, okay, what are we gonna we're gonna have to compensate to try to get bigger on the fourth spot, and that at that point I'm like, that's why I like a guy like Zach Collins to be a backup power forward. Now you can get him out there and move him around. You know what I mean? Without any of the center duties. You know what I'm saying? The other day, uh, and it's funny because we're saying all this, or I'm saying all this, and the other day, the day that he was shooting really well and he had a pretty efficient night, I think he like didn't miss a shot until the fourth quarter or something. Um, they took him out of the game and put Jakob in, and it kind of messed the flow up a little bit, right? It was like it almost felt like Collins probably could have finished the game out there. So again, I'm just kind of talking, but I don't know. At that in that game before they switched him out, I was like, they should put both of them out there. They should have Yak and let Collins cook at the four if he's earning that moment. You know what I mean? Because of his play, but you still want to have your defensive closer. Then put them both out there and go big real quick for the last 2 or 3 minutes and see what that's like. Like again, that would put Collins at that four spot. I don't know. It's just the idea of him being our backup center that I'm not too fond of.
yeah. Well, and I will say this when I was talking about like I don't want to see Zach get those touches. It's because to me, um, I don't want to necessarily put our time into trying to see what Zach Collins can do right there. I would rather us just try to build a play for a guy like Malachi, for I mean, maybe
Yeah.
Jeremy on offense, but not really, right? Like Jeremy's still trying to just find his own shot. So it's okay if you're not trying to just make a play for a guy like Jeremy. But I'm saying like I think there are 5, 6 other guys on this team that I would just rather see have the ball in their hands than Zach Collins because of like where we're at.
Mhm.
Zach Collins isn't going to get this is where Zach Collins is going to be for his career. What we're seeing right now, this is
Yeah.
what he is going to be for his career.
Yeah.
We could
And oh, go ahead.
there's potential that we could see more from a guy like Romeo Langford, from a guy like Malachi Branham. If Blake Wesley could ever get minutes in on an NBA court. Like I would rather see those guys get those touches rather than seeing Zach Collins get a touch like that. And then again, like obviously you have to like change things around. You can't just keep things like to where it is. Eventually it is just going to become Malachi Branham ISO ball and it's just the ugliest basketball that you've ever seen. I understand that, but that doesn't mean that like we're not doing some things that we could be doing to benefit some of the young players on this team, especially with the injuries that are happening. We're seeing Devin Vassell and Keldon Johnson be out, and I'm glad Malachi's getting more minutes. But like, why hasn't Blake seen the floor? Why hasn't Romeo Langford gotten more minutes? Why hasn't a guy like Isaiah Roby been able to find consistency on anything for our team? Like
Yeah.
what like there's some things where I'm like, all right, I get it because we're trying to trade a guy like Josh Richardson, we're trying to trade a guy like Doug McDermott, but then I'm trying to understand why there was the pickup of getting a Stanley Johnson. Stanley Johnson's been amazing for us, but was Stanley Johnson the pickup for the San Antonio Spurs? Like he feels
Oh,
like he's a guy who could have been.
you think he's gonna move too?
I don't know. That's my
Are we
thing.
able to move Stanley
I,
Johnson?
I don't know that I don't know with where we picked him up. I'm not too sure if
Yeah.
we were able to
Um.
do that.
I mean, to be honest, I think, like I said, I think we're almost done with this era because of the trade deadline. You know what I mean? I think we are going to see more. In my opinion, because of the Devin injuries and Keldon missing a little bit of time too. Um, I feel like we have seen a lot of Romeo. You know what I mean? But I feel like it's gonna kind of work itself out as soon. I feel like we're gonna clear it out in some respect. I don't really know what combination of names it could be, right? But between Richardson and McDermott, and probably a guy like Kata Bates, probably a guy like I mean, I guess that's it, right? I mean, maybe is Gorgie movable off of a 10-day, or we just let him go at that point?
I think you're just letting him go again
Yeah,
or whatever is happening.
yeah,
It was interesting to see him get signed to a 10-day literally this morning.
yeah.
But I think I want to say that's just like so that we can save more Bassey minutes. But at that point, why haven't we just signed Charles Bassey to a deal yet?
I mean,
You know,
again, I feel like like a guy like Gorgie he knows the ins and outs of the NBA, right? And so he's probably in the know through his agents and all that of like, this is what the process is probably going to look like. We're probably going to let you go, and then we might with the possibility of bringing you back through this way so that we could do this for you and maybe try to get you here, right? And you know what I mean? Like, there's all these talks that go on when it comes to this kind of stuff. So there probably is a path, and we're just not there yet, right? Because all of these vets, this is the time where they start to shift around and they start to do their thing, and then it'll kind of solidify. So we won't really see, and that's why I kind of had put up the question of like, what is your ideal final roster, and we can jump into that now. I liked how we were kind of talking about Zach Collins for a while. I will be down to kind of just run down anybody that you wanted to talk to like that. But we can start going into this too. Uh, um, as you know, thinking ahead, right? You're talking about how come we can't get minutes for a guy like Roby? How come we right? Da 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 da. Okay, so you are getting your ideal roster. Let's say right after, like, trade deadline has just ended. what are you trying to do for the team?
So my ideal roster, I'm gonna say it like this, just because of what has happened right recently. Like Devin Vassell got that knee surgery, and you know I'm glad that like after like looking it up a little bit, doing a little bit of research, it's like a minor thing to where it's like not gonna affect him, but it's gonna take weeks for him to come back, and I like it's like one of those things where I think that they're really just gonna hold Devin out, like kind of sucks. I don't think I've ever really wanted to like feel like we're tanking, but when I saw the surgery, it was like, well, this is like a tank move, you know. It was kind of funny in the moment. You look at like some of the replies when you saw the tweet that Devin's getting a surgery, and it's like, and one of the pictures was like, this is what Devin's knee looks like, and it literally had like a picture of Wemby in the like all over like an X-ray scan,
Yeah.
and it's, like, yeah, you're right in a sense. Like he kind of got this surgery. He's not going to be able to come back. And that means that we're not going to win games over the next couple months because we don't have one of our two 20-point per game scorers.
Hmm.
Um, and so just like, putting that as a preference that I like, Devin's on my final roster, but I'm gonna kind of talk about like where I want depth wise, and that would be like where I'm seeing Trey Jones and Blake Wesley both getting point guard minutes, and where I'm seeing Malachi Branham and Romeo Langford getting the two guard minutes. I'm seeing Keldon maybe come back, but also I mean same thing with him. If we're gonna be conservative with him and not play him a lot, you know that opens up more wing play for anybody. If whether that's a trade, because I don't want to like in my ideal final roster, I don't want to see Josh Richardson on this team by the trade deadline. I don't want to see Doug McDermott on this team by the trade deadline.
Neither.
No, neither. I mean, just because I think we could get assets for them because I do
Hmm.
think that we could get value. If we do, if they do end up on our final roster, I'm not mad. I'm not going to be angry that Josh Richardson's still here, and I'm not going to be angry that Doug McDermott's still here. But I think that we could get some value for them, and I think that we should try to move them.
Um, okay, I'm gonna ask you a question on that later, but keep going.
And so then we got those two guys out of the way, and by that point, we're opening up more minutes. Jeremy's getting that PT, that second power forward slots opened up, and I would really want to see Isaiah Roby start to actually get consistent minutes for this year, you
Hmm.
know, because he is a good basketball player and we're just underutilizing him. He could be one of the better players on this team, but we're just not playing him. And I don't know, like it could be an inside thing, like whatever, like it could be maybe Pop and Isaiah Roby just aren't seeing eye to eye or whatever. But I do think that Isaiah Roby is a good basketball player, and I think that we should just start getting him some PT, like just to see what he can do out there. Um, and then while I would like to see Yak get moved too, if the right deal comes into place. Again, if Yak is still on this team, and then Zach Collins is still our backup center, but hopefully we finally set a deal that Charles Bassey is finally a guaranteed contract on this team. That would be my last three, on for those centers, right? And that kind of leaves that like secondary three spot open, and I'm okay with that because it's like, well, what if we do get a trade where we're getting like I'm just gonna throw a name like Cam Reddish out there because there's like a couple of those young guys, 23, 24 years old, that like could get moved that we could just throw like a flyer on.
Hmm.
We're trading we're trading whatever second round pick and maybe Doug McDermott for Cam Reddish to the Knicks because the Knicks just don't play him and they're not really looking to pay him, all that kind of stuff. And we could throw I would say we could throw a fire on a guy like that and we'll just let them develop and see what they look like on a contract year for us. So it's like a guy like Cam Reddish, just somebody who's young, who's like a good a good sized wing that could play that three spot well. And obviously, if Romeo Langford's your backup too, then you have defense already there. So if you want to have a more offensive minded wing, or if you want to bring in another defensive minded wing, whatever.
Hmm.
I think anybody young that we could end up getting through the trades, I wouldn't mind doing that so that we could fill them in. And obviously, if Devin Vassell does end up coming back and he is playing, then we're just sliding Malachi back to the second unit, and it's Malachi Romeo. You know, I
Yeah.
think that would be my ideal final roster.
Yeah, I like the idea of I love the idea of giving many minutes to Malachi. That's a kid so far who every time he's out there, I'm willing to see what he can do, good and bad, good or bad. Um, Love to watch him play so far. Loved it. And you can see it in there, man. You're like, he's got a way that he shoots the ball with a lot of confidence. He's got a way where you can see him getting hot. He's got um, his movement kind of reminds me a lot of like Victor Oladipo. The more that I watch him, he reminds me of Victor Oladipo. Just the kind of way he shifts around. I don't know about like his athleticism or any of that kind of stuff. I don't really know how well that compares, but just the way that he moves. Um, so I'm down with that part of it. Um, I'm surprised. Well, I can't remember the conversation we had a couple weeks ago about Jakob, but I don't know. Literally every time that you said, and if Jakob Pertl, they give us 2 picks, we can let him go too. Every time you said that, I was like, damn, it's hitting me too hard. Um, I don't know with our team. I mean, if okay, so if we got rid of Jakob Pertl like that, like what do you? What I mean, you're just taking the lumps at that point, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and the only reason I am saying that is because we decided to let Devin
Yeah, there were.
like the surgery, you know, that surgery right there tells me everything that I need to know about the what the rest of the season's looking like for us,
Yeah.
and that is, you know, we are in this pure rebuild, like there's not really if we're gonna play anybody that's not a bottom four team, we're probably looking to lose that game.
I'm gonna. I know we're kind of all over the place, but I'm gonna bring this question to the table now. Like, do you mind if we shut him down?
I do mind that Devin Vassell's not like not getting run out there. A surgery, it is what it is.
I'll leave
Like
this up.
that's like a long term move, you know,
Hmm.
and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with like again with what they were talking about in that surgery. It's a very like it's not something that's gonna really hinder him. It's something that can like help make sure that his knee isn't going to like be affected by little injuries, little nicks here and there for the foreseeable future. And
So,
it's like, okay,
what's his recovery timetable? Does it say?
they were saying like at least again, and a lot of the stuff was just coming off of like what like the Twitter people would say, and I'm not saying like the actual what I was looking at for the research, but at least like the timetable was like 6 weeks is what some people were saying, right?
Hmm.
Um, and so, you know, 6 weeks on that injury. I mean, that's like a month and a half. That's like right when trade deadline will like come back around, and he could come back. But if we do shut him down, I'm gonna be a little like upset. Like again, we're kind of making this move right now of like, all right, well then I guess we should just trade Josh right now. We should trade Doug right now, trade Yak right now, get all of these losses out of the way through January and February, and continue, you know, as we're selling, you know,
Hmm.
then we come back. Devin can come back or whatever wing we're playing at that point, whatever. Like, and we're just gonna ride the rest of the season out. But if we completely shut down Devin, that's when I'm gonna be like, come on now, like he could have been out there, and we're not letting him be out there, kind of thing.
Mm.
So
I
we'll
get you.
see.
Yeah. I mean, I would again. I think I get what you're saying, or I think I'm agreeing with you, which is like if it's from a health standpoint and he has to be out, fine. We're totally fine with that. But if it feels like we're purposely delaying it or whatever, just because that would feel a little bit different. I get what you're saying.
Hmm.
Um. Uh. Okay. I mean, I'm kind of the same. I'm kind of the same. I do feel like right now, especially with Devin out, we're gonna see a lot of J Rich, a lot more Doug, uh, up until the time it is for them to move. But I I'm okay. Like you kind of sold me a little bit on getting rid of both Doug and KBD, especially if you have the idea in mind where you're willing to take a chance on somebody who could do some of the things that they do, but just a younger guy or just a different guy, a cheaper guy, whatever other kind of thing. I would be down with that too. I think ultimately originally I was thinking like if I had to keep one, which one would I rather keep? And although they kind of, they both can get hot from outside. Josh kind of brings a little bit more of the defense. Um, Doug's a little bit more of that specialist. But I don't know why I keep wanting to lean back towards Doug. I think it's just because he is such a specialist. Like that would be his role, right? And it would be very clearly defined. Whereas Josh is kind of that he's flexible, and that almost would hurt us, right? Because now he's stepping on a lot of people's toes. Whereas you're going to slot Doug. You're not going to play him heavy minutes at this point, post trade deadline. Hopefully he's just sitting on the bench, and then you bring him out for what you need him, right? And just as a tool, let's teach Malachi and let's teach Blake and let's teach these young guys how to play with a guy who moves like Doug and can shoot like Doug and find the shooter. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
it's a great thing to teach. Not to say Josh couldn't help teach those same lessons. I think they have a lot of crossover in how they can help us as vets. But I just think that Josh again has a little bit more of that where he would be taking away minutes from people that I want him to take minutes from. Um, but I'd be down to find some value where we can find value there. I don't want to get rid of Jakob. I think the value lies in Jakob at that in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? You would need a haul for me to get rid of Jakob. KBD, is he expendable? I mean, yeah, he is expendable. I'll say that, but I mean, like, is he uh entertaining? Not entertaining. Is he? You know what I mean? Does anybody want him? Is it? You know. um,
I I'll say that I didn't even talk about KVD on my final roster, and I think that that is a point that I was trying to make. I just didn't even talk about him,
yeah.
you know?
So
So
we're not paying him very much, so it's not like a big. It's not like a big like we're not. And who cares about the money this year anyway, right? As long as we're, who cares? But so a guy like KBD, he could be packaged in some kind of way, and that's fine. Um, I post trade deadline, I'm kind of like you though. I want to see Malachi get a lot of minutes. I want to see Blake come in and start to play. I mean, we brought him back, and I was surprised he got 0 minutes. Maybe it's just because we of the flow of the game, you know what I mean, and we were pushing it and all the way to the end. So he probably just didn't find a window for Blake to get in last night. But I think, to be honest, I feel like we are about to see a lot of Blake in the near future. But I want to see a lot of Blake, a lot of Malachi. Want to see, I don't know, like I want to see Roby. I do, but Stanley Johnson has been cool. I don't know. I don't know if I saw it as Stanley Johnson being like a tradable piece, or a trade piece, and maybe he is. And if he does leave, then Roby, I want to see Roby too. But if he doesn't, I'm okay to have Roby and him kind of fight it out, and let's see who's doing well. You know what I mean? Like at that point, that's cool with me. Um, Also going back to Blake Wesley, why I want to see more of him. I'm not 100% on the on giving all of the point guard responsibilities to Jeremy Sohan at times, man. Sometimes that thing is just so funny. Oh my god, Sean Elliott the other night. Did you hear when he was like, "Oh my goodness," off of Jeremy's carry? He was dribbling the ball
oh,
and then
yeah.
like just does like one big swipe across the guy, right? And he's talking and talking, talking. Oh my goodness! So that that
Yeah,
that's been my reaction to on some of Jeremy's play, just with the ball in his hand specifically, But I think I'm with you, man. I'm with you. I'm ready. I enjoy all the things that Doug and Josh bring, um, and I've loved what they've been able to teach us. I'm ready for to let it fly now. You know what I'm saying? Let go get value where we can get from them. Let the young guys play. And
and I will say I appreciate like what Josh and Doug have been doing because I feel like you can see like their leadership through a guy like Malachi, you know, because I mean, and I don't like talking trash on like an individual player in terms of like just like kind of like what they are in a sense. I'll talk trash about how like a player plays, and yada yada, like being a quote unquote LeBron hater, all that kind of stuff, right? But you can see like how a guy like Malachi Branham is forming his play under a situation with Josh Richardson, Doug McDermott, and the Spurs, compared to how guys like Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green are just like doing nothing this season, but playing undisciplined basketball on a team on a Rockets team that has no vets other than Eric Gordon, who said that they're not even improving, you
Hmm.
know, and it's like they don't have any leadership over there in Houston. And you can see how these guys just don't play defense. They do this like crazy stuff where Kevin Porter Jr. is going to take a three, miss it, run to the other side of the court, and just like punch a ball from getting in the goal as like the craziest goaltend I've ever seen. And it's like Malachi would never do that. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's a thing where it's like these guys just aren't in the right situation to grow in Houston, but Malachi has like all the right people around him. And we've seen this guy go from, I feel like when he was first here, obviously just trying to find his shot at first, then being too shy to try to take those shots, then finally taking those shots and not going in at all, to now he's being efficient. He is being efficient on that court. And again, rookie, he's making rookie mistakes. You'll see it every now and then. But man, there are those flashes where you're like, this man's gonna be a crazy three-level scorer. Like he's got it. He's going to be like doing the dang thing, like coming off of the second unit if that's like where we want him to be right now.
Hmm.
And I feel like a lot of that comes from Josh being in his ear. Like this is a thing that you could do. You got like you can always look for these guys right here. You don't have to just shoot the ball every time you're running in transition, kind of thing.
Hmm.
And I feel like there's a lot that a guy like Josh Richardson is teaching Malachi because of just where their positions are and
Yeah.
what they do on the court.
And
They're both
that's why at the end of the day, if we end up keeping one of those guys, J Rich or Doug, because of that, like, and also it might be because the market wasn't what we hoped it would be or whatever.
yeah,
But for whatever reason, if we end up keeping one of those guys, I'm down because of all the things that you're talking about.
exactly. And
Yeah,
and that's like again like I do think that a guy like Malachi would have eventually found his way, but you always know that the leadership and the mentorship of the situation around you does affect how good you could be.
well,
And so
and it's like I was saying too, a guy like Doug, his play style is what's gonna force you to be a better, ball handler. Like I need to get the ball quick because Doug is already flying to the other corner, and if I could have done that fast enough, I could have saw him there. So uh, uh, their play style is gonna make our young guys better. You know what I'm saying? So
mhm.
uh, um, I'm excited for I'm excited the fact that we're getting close to the trade deadline because you know when we're in this season so far, there has been times where it feels kind of like a slog, right? Because you we're going to be losing a lot of games. It makes you kind of feel to the point where it's like, well, I can check stats, I can watch stats, and I like stats, and I like the analytics and the math of it all and the patterns and trends of it all. But at the same time, it can feel meaningless at times, right? The games themselves can start to feel a little bit like that if you let them. And so, uh, it's it's been cool to kind of break our season so far into kind of chunks, and so we're kind of I feel like now we're gonna move into the next phase, and it's just gonna kind of keep us moving through, right? Uh, um, and yeah, it might come with a lot more losses on the schedule, but that's just the year we're in, right?
Mhm.
Um, what was is there any like I don't know, is there anybody else that's like that you kind of wanted to say anything about? I'm trying to think real quick. In looking at my notes.
Well,
I
we
think
didn't.
that go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we touched on Malachi, we touched on our bets, and I think the one person that we haven't really touched on too much, talked about too much is Jeremy Sohan. You said a little bit about not liking him having to have that like the point forward responsibilities all the time, and I
Mhm,
understand
mhm,
that.
mhm,
But man, there is so much that Jeremy does out there that people just like in a sense, he is a stat stuffer that nobody cares about his stats. And it's like there's so many people on Twitter that love to like stat watch and be like, oh, Jeremy's not scoring, Jeremy's not doing this, Jeremy can't be like, and it's like, yeah, Jeremy's only scoring 9 points right now, but he's also getting eight boards and 5 assists. Like he's literally like having these nights of being like doing everything on the court, getting steals, getting going, fighting for loose balls, getting blocks, getting boards, dishing out the ball, but then also running off ball and getting those like dunker spot like bounce passes and stuff like that, where it's like, oh, that was perfect. He ran into the perfect spot right there that not everybody does. Um and Jeremy's been like doing it all at just like the strongest energy that I it feels like he can right now. And it's been wonderful to see. I've been loving every second of Jeremy, and I was talking about how Malachi has been improving all season.
mhm.
Jeremy's been doing the same thing. It's just a lot less noticeable. It's so much less noticeable because he was already doing a lot of that stuff at the beginning of the season, but you're just seeing it like sharp, like you're seeing it happen in the yeah, like he's being sharper about it.
Yeah.
His cuts
And
are
and
better,
that's
his
and that's not
passes are
even
better.
that's not even to talk about the fact that now we just I mean, it's been like this all year, but now he's just the guy who's on the ball handler in the crunch time. You know what I mean? Like, it's been great to watch him have to guard like Brunson, like smaller guards, but people who are just gonna make him move. You know what I mean? So,
Hmm.
and I agree with what you're saying. Like, he has been doing a lot of the stuff since the beginning of the year. Uh, uh, um, so, and I'm not trying to take away anything. Again, in terms of him handling the ball, I think it is gonna in the long run, it is gonna help us, and he does do great things. A lot of the same kind of stuff that you would want to see out of the Draymond Green kind of role, right? And pushing the floor up to opportune times. I will say, it's been interesting though. Like they're just growing pains, but we had the what was it? Maybe it was Portland or something where we got the steal at the very end of the game. Jeremy gets the steal or ends up with the ball after the steal, but then goes and like kind of blows the layup right after.
Yeah, me and Juan were driving home, and we're trying to figure out what happened because we couldn't watch the game at that point. And he's like looking at like the play by play,
Mhm.
and he sees it say like steal Jeremy Sohan missed layup, and we're like, no way, there's no
Yeah.
way that Jeremy like got
So
this got this steal, could have been the game tie or whatever, and
so
like
and that you respect him for trying to go for the point, right? Okay, yeah, he took the shot. Okay, fine. It's in late part of the game. We got an opportunity. We you know what I'm saying? Like that's what you do with your opportunity. You go and take a shot, and then you get the flip side of that, right? Which is we didn't get a chance to take a shot, and this is Jeremy on the inbound, get the 5 second. Don't even get a shot off at the end, that kind of stuff too. So like
and
again,
I'll say
not a knock on him at all because that's growing pains for everybody. Like we need to learn how to execute in those moments, and that's fine. It's just interesting that so far those two have come up kind of recently, right? And they both kind of been with the ball in his hand a little bit. Uh, um, but again, just talking.
Yeah, well, I'll say it like this. At the beginning of the year, Devin Vassell had this chance to, I think it was like tie the game, or maybe they go for the win with like a three or something like that. He's going for a clutch time shot, and he goes for that step back three, and he misses it. And he says it. I said it as soon as it got on the podcast. I was not afraid of Devin Vassell taking that shot, and I would never be afraid of him doing that in the clutch if we got those moments. And later this year, right? In that sense, we see him hit daggers, become our closer, start to be, he's way more confident in that shot now, and he's making those game-ending shots that are gonna, be like, well, what are they gonna do about it now? Devin Vassell just hit that step back shot over you, and can't do anything about it. It's the same thing with Jeremy right now. Right now, we're throwing that man into the fire. He's got to be in every single clutch situation he can be in so he can understand and know exactly what to do and what
Hmm.
not to do.
Hmm.
You know, let that man guard Steph Curry in the clutch. Let that man guard whoever the best player, Kevin Durant in the clutch,
And
Jason Tatum.
speaking of him like being up and kind of taking on that point guard role, or that point forward, whatever, like it does feel a lot better having him guard Luca in the clutch than a guy like DeJounte or Trey, or you know what I mean. I know we would throw a guy like Keldon on him anyway. Uh, uh, um, but to see Jeremy out there having to guard so many of the ball handlers in the clutch and doing well. I mean, how many times it's like you feel like you can pull a handful of times of seeing him in the clutch of the game force a point guard to, like, instead of just being able to stand still and wait for the clock and do his thing and then get into his, instead he's getting pressured out to half court and then has to turn around and go right into his action from way out there. Like, he just he has that relentlessness about him on the defensive end. So, yeah, man, nothing bad to say about how Jeremy's been handled this year and how he's been handling everything that we're throwing at him.
Exactly. It's been fun. It's been exciting. I'm very excited to see what those two rookies can do, and it's just a shame that Blake Wesley just has been hurt all year for us not to be able to see what he can do. But he's been killing it in Austin. And it's like, come on, we can give him that PT. Whereas there's like you're saying with you don't want to see Jeremy take that like so many touches at the point forward.
Hmm.
I think a guy like Blake, he's not like he does want to become a point guard, obviously, but coming out of the draft, he's such a raw prospect that it was kind of the same thing with it was when it was with Dejounte. Sorry, where he's such a raw prospect that he's not necessarily a pass first guard.
Yeah,
He is a scoring guard. He likes to score around, but we've seen this man literally change that mindset as soon as he came to the Spurs, and as soon as you saw him in the summer league. This dude was throwing turnover by turnover by turnover, but he was trying. He was trying. He was trying to look for the opportunities that he could of what him driving to the basket would lead to opportunities for his teammates. And so hopefully, like obviously the best experience is the on-court experience, but hopefully him through the year just watching everybody play, he's been able to kind of understand more of the game to where now he is going to become a better point guard, and that when he does come into the play, I'm not necessarily going to want to see Blake throw 8 turnovers a game, but if it happens, it happens, and we'll be able to have Trey Jones, Jeremy Sohan, Blake Wesley, where it feels easier that Trey
yeah.
Jones is not out there on the
Yeah,
court.
I'm
And
with you. I'm with you in that sense too, where it doesn't have to feel like he's now the straight up backup point guard. I'm okay if it does feel like you divvy that role, those roles up to Jeremy and to Blake to relieve Trey.
yeah,
I'm totally down
exactly.
with that.
Exactly. And I think, the thing that I love about how long we've been doing this podcast is because a couple years back we were talking about Derek White should be on the bench because when DeJounte's on the court, we have a brain. And then if Derek's on the court
I
as a
mean,
backup point guard, we have a brain.
yeah,
And when you don't have the backup point guard, you don't have a brain on the court, you know? And that's just what I'm bringing up right now. This is like, again, I like the fact that we've been doing this for so long because we had those conversations years back. And then all of a sudden we're like, well, now we have a lot of guards on this team and we don't, we're perfectly fine. Like what's who's going to be able to like hold the ball in their hands and become the point guard of this team to now we're like
yeah.
we only have
I
we only
mean,
have one guard who can actually run an offense of set, and no one else really does that on this team.
yeah. It's been
But there's a
interesting.
chance now that we could be able to kind of relieve that to where it does feel like this team on the second unit is we are able to run it well and not be like a headless horse, right?
I mean, and this is a good. it's an unfortunate thing that it had to happen because of Wesley getting injured, and then also because of the Josh Primo stuff. But it has forced Sohan to kind of be more into that role, and this is like what we're left with now. Because I mean, we would have been way more balanced in a traditional sense with a guy like Primo probably taking a starting role or fighting for a starting role with Trey, and then going from there, right, where they are battling for 1 and 2 at the point guard position. But yeah, it is interesting. We just got to see Derek yesterday. You know what I mean? So it's been crazy to see the past couple of
And
years, like you said.
man, was that certainly it was a treat, but also a like, come on, like what is it? It's the bittersweet, right? Bittersweet, like
Did they
because
do anything for Derek? Was that his first game back
yeah,
in
it was
town?
his first game back in San Antonio, so so they definitely had the tribute video,
I wonder if that's on the internet.
I'm sure you could find it. I'm sure
Huh.
you could definitely find that Derek White tribute video, but um, it was bittersweet because man, uh, and for me it's bittersweet because I enjoy most of that Celtics team, but they're like Jason Tatum, Jalen Brown were like they just couldn't be stopped, man. Like it didn't matter how good defense that we tried. Obviously, we're not a good defensive team, but it didn't matter like how good that we could try against those guys. They were just gonna make every single shot over us. It didn't matter.
Yeah,
And then
Tatum is a for some reason, or Boston is for some reason a team that I got to watch like kind of a lot over the break. They probably just were highlighted a lot on prime time. Um, and he's in a groove, man. Tatum is just so comfortable, like in almost every aspect of the game right now.
exactly, and so they those 2 guys were killing us on offense, and then it's like clutch time. Zach Collins gets an offensive rebound, and I'm like, "Oh, man, finally, put it back up." As soon as he goes back up, Derek Weiss, like, brings it right back down, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Derek,
That that's
no."
that's that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about, right? And I miss on the highlight, I kind of missed that actually. I could hear them say they said like Derek White with a block, like, and it was in the last like bit of the game, right?
Yeah.
Dang, you
Collins literally got that offensive board, and Derek just brings it right back down, and I told Juan, I was like, "Man, it used to be one of those things where we were like, yeah, that's Derek White for you. We know that that's Derek White for you. Try to send up something weak. If any backup center tries to send up something weak like that, Derek's gonna take it, because he's that guy. He's that smart." And it happened to us, and we're like,
Mhm. Matter of fact, didn't the game, like, start with a Derek White block or something too? He had one at, like, right at the very
I didn't
beginning?
I didn't get to see the very start of the game. Our nephews were in the house, and so I had to look over those guys for that first little bit,
Huh.
uh, and then um, and then I was able to go start watching the game after that point. But man, it was so sad to like look at the end of the game and just see Derek Derek take the ball like that. I was like, no. There
Mhm.
was a play, and I wouldn't necessarily like this wasn't that like a really big deal or anything. There was a play where it was like, wow, are you for real gonna make that call? Like Jeremy goes for like a slow euro, and Derek puts his body in the right positions to take those charges,
Mhm.
but Derek barely gets touched. He doesn't like flop or anything. He barely gets touched, and the ref calls the offensive foul. And I was like,
Hey,
"What?"
speaking of contact, though, I saw it was like one of the last field goals that Jason Tatum made. He freaking shoves the shit out of Trey Jones, sends him
Hmm.
flying. Yeah, that one made me laugh, man. I mean,
And
maybe there's a little so in there, but he pushed him. He pushed him.
that's where when Josh talks about how little Trey is when guarding against somebody,
Mhm.
that's when it matters.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
Trey is 6'1" guarding against 6'8" Jason Tatum, like yeah, Jason Tatum's gonna be able to just get this little dude off of me and just take his shot, or I think he ends up like passing it to Derek or something. And so, um, like when that happens, man, like can't do anything about that for Trey. But I believe in Trey against a 6'3", 6'2" point guard that he's going against, on the
Yeah.
opposite end type thing. He we I feel like we played good against we tried our best on defense, like to where it wasn't like helpless effort.
It, it
It
just it
was
just
literally
it just
just
felt it just felt like they were like, let me take one dribble, kick back to the 3-point line, and then they were shoot, and they were just making their 3-pointers. You know what I mean?
and but to me, those 3-pointers, especially the ones that Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum were shooting and making, they're 3-pointers that you're like you're okay with most people taking. Now you can't be okay with the guy like Jason Tatum taking those shots. You have to adjust to the superstars taking those shots. But again, in a normal sense, you look at that, you look at where the ball's going, and you're like, oh, I'm okay with these guys taking the freaking like 8 feet behind the 3-point line type of 3-point jumper.
Yeah,
But then they make them, and you're like, oh my goodness, like
yeah,
what? Or can we even do anything about that? They're just making them from everywhere, you
yeah,
know.
yeah. That's what I'm saying. It was like just one step to the side. All right, kick back out. All right, shoot. Like not even like heavy screens. It was just yeah, using the length, using the space. Uh,
Hmm.
um, but I
They're a
definitely
top 3 team in the league for a reason.
yeah.
That's
Oh,
that's
I
the one
mean,
thing that I'm gonna say. They're a top 3 team in the league for a reason, and I do think that whoever comes out of the East is like right there at that at just they're probably my favorites. Whether that's Milwaukee, whether that's Boston, maybe whether that's Brooklyn. We'll see it. Like I mean, they're kind of turning it around right now, but we'll see. We'll see.
mhm.
At least in
uh,
terms of the East.
yeah, I'm kind of the same way. Um, and then I don't know. I feels like Denver. Since the very beginning of the year, I was like, well, Denver's gonna get Murray back. This is gonna be one of their best years in probably the last 5 easily. You know what I mean? So
They've been solid too. They've been solid too, and with Denver, it's definitely been like I feel like you're kind of on the dot that like people were kind of not necessarily calling them contenders, but now that everybody's starting to get comfortable coming back from those injuries and stuff, like in a sense of just Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr., right? Um, they look like they're a lot better from the beginning of the year,
they've
you know.
had they've had
It's
3 years or however, like because of the bubble and because of Murray's injury, they've kind of had 2 or 3 years to kind of retool their role players and like their that part of their roster, and now their aces are ready to go. You know what I'm saying? So
So
yeah.
I definitely just honestly I would say like the same way that I
Oh,
felt about
sorry. New Orleans too. New Orleans too. Like,
oh yeah, and they're I don't want to talk about New Orleans. I don't want to talk about New Orleans. I want to talk about Memphis.
yeah, yeah.
But um with Denver, this I feel like this year's Denver is the same way that I felt about the year that like the bubble year for Miami. Like it's the same way that I felt where they're probably going to end up being like a 5th seed going into the playoffs. But I do think that they're going to give whoever they play against a run for their money. That would probably end up making them be Western Conference champion type players, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that whoever ends up beating Denver would probably end up being the guys that I think are gonna try to go out of the West. You know, like stuff like that. Where um, when I was talking about Miami Heat in the bubble, I was like, you know what? Don't sleep on Miami. Don't sleep on Denver this year. And I'm gonna give this to Chris because Chris was the one who brought that up. You know, so
Yeah.
uh,
It'll be a good push into All-Star break, and then we'll see how see how it starts to shape up.
mhm.
But I
Well,
think we're good to start wrapping up. What do you think, Jake?
yeah, Chris. Is there anything that you wanna finish up with? Anything that you've like been
I
wanting to
did
see?
I did write this, right? So just like we've kind of talked a little bit about it in terms of like the roster construction, but more I don't know, probably just more from like a on the court kind of thing. Um I want to I mean you had mentioned it earlier, right? You're like, even though you wouldn't call us the worst team in the league, well, we're not, we're not record wise. And you can see it with the eye test too that we are better than some of these lower teams. Um, I don't need us to be ranked 30th in defense all year long. You know what I'm saying? I would like for that to go up. So I would like to see just a little bit more commitment to making other people to work as hard as we can. Uh, um, there's just you can see when we're having to work hard and they're not having to work hard. So if we can
Mhm.
just see as much as we possibly can, make it an ugly game for our opponent, then I'm down to let the chips fall. Where they fall. um, would like to see a little bit more time for Blake now that he's kind of being called back up from Austin. He spent a little bit of time over there. I'm okay with the time he spent there because coming back from his injury and let him get going and all that kind of stuff. But I'm ready now. We called him up. Let's start to see him now. And I mean that's kind of it. That's kind of it. Maybe we'll see more of Bassie. Maybe we'll see. I don't know. All of my expectations for rosters is up in the air until February. That's kind of how I feel. We're kind of in that part of the year. So
Yeah. Well, I think just to add on to this, right? Uh, if he ever comes back for the year, I think the thing that I would want to see is just better defense from Devin. Um, we saw it in that first year, and we saw it less in that second year, but it felt like that man had some like really sharp defensive instincts. He has the build to be a really good defender, but just because he's become like a 20-point per game scorer, I feel like I have definitely think like Spurs fans in general have just not like been giving him like that little bit of leeway. But now that he's been doing it consistently and he comes back from this injury fine, or comes back from the surgery fine, I want to see better defense from him. I want to see this man become a real two-way player in the league.
yeah.
I think I've I've been trying to kind of push that Chris Middleton comparison that he could be a three-level scorer, but there's Chris Middleton's not only a three-level scorer, he is a solid defender. Granted, he's got a guy like Giannis behind him, so he can have leeway to be less of a defensive stud than Drew Holiday. I mean, this man's got Giannis and Drew Holiday, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But so he doesn't have to be the best defender on his team. But I want to see a guy like Devin push that because I wanted a
Um,
guy like Devin to be better than a guy than
I,
the Chris
I
Middleton.
I like that. I like that having having those high goals. And actually, we didn't really talk too much about KJ this week. Kind of just because he's been doing his thing and he's been kind of steady at this point. But
He got out of the slump.
yeah,
He
yeah.
got out of the slump, and then he's just been steady since.
But
I think.
but on the flip side of kind of what you're saying is like we've kind of been in a little bit of a limbo with Devin, right? Because he's kind of been in and out, right, off of his knee. Um, And so in that regard, Keldon's kind of been, having to lead, but it's just kind of like this thing. Uh, 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 um, if he has to miss and it's kind of more solidified, I would like to see Keldon kind of, at least in the next few weeks, kind of like how I wrote on the thing, right? What do you want to see in the next like few days, few weeks? While Devin's out, I want to kind of see him take a little bit more of that assertiveness of like we know Devin's out for the time being. You know what I'm saying? There's more of that certainty. So I want to see you kind of lead the charge just a little bit more. Just take it up one or two notches. You don't got to do it all by yourself. We're going to do it by committee, but I want to see him kind of lead the charge with making up for what we know is going to be gone now for a while. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm. No,
Um,
exactly.
but yeah,
And then I think the other thing would be, let's see what Romeo Langford could add to his game. Let's see, like he's been like doing everything that he can, and I feel like with his build, with his defensive instincts, the sky's the limit on a guy like him when it comes to like what he can add to a team.
hmm
And so let's see what he can try to add to our offense. You know, hopefully, like he's honestly, it was kind of crazy to see him go from like last year. Like anytime I saw him shoot the ball from three, it was like, well, that's going to be a clink. Like that's not going in.
dang,
To now it's like you see him get that three ball in the corner, and it's like, is he going to knock it down? Like I'm ready for you to knock it down, right? Um, and and so it's been nice to see him be able to progress his shot over this year, and then that man is like learning more and more on how to take dudes off the dribble. And Juan was talking about this to me yesterday, but anytime he sees somebody smaller than him, he really is just playing big body as like a 6'5" wing. He's playing big body against whoever's smaller than him, and he's just taking them to the rim.
yeah.
So let's just see what Romeo Langford could kind of add to this team. I think that hopefully he's going to be able to solidify his role for this team because I like a guy like Romeo Langford on this team for the foreseeable future. You
Mhm.
know, if a quality starter that is younger than Romeo Langford comes along the way, then so be it. But for now, I think a guy like Romeo Langford should have his role solidified within this organization.
Yeah,
Like,
and
just
this is the time. Devin Vassell misses time for his injury. This is his time right now. So
mhm.
uh,
It was almost the Josh Richardson slash Romeo Langford revenge game yesterday, and I was excited. I was happy. We
Richardson played
don't.
for Boston.
Yeah, they both played for Boston, and
Yeah.
they
Okay.
got
Okay.
traded for Derek. You know,
Oh,
um,
duh. Okay. I was gonna say
and
I
so
know that he's been on a few teams, but duh, we actually got him from Boston. Yeah,
yeah, so I was hoping that it would have been their revenge game, and
instead of Derek's.
yeah, because it's always the opposite of the Spurs get their revenge game, the Drew Eubanks revenge game, the Jock Landale revenge game. It's never the Romeo Langford or Josh Richardson revenge game.
Yeah,
Um, so I think that's something that I'm excited to see because Romeo Langford he's been having a couple like 20-point games these last like couple weeks. So let's just see more of him. Let's just see more of him from Romeo.
yeah. Well, they'll have another shot. March 26th, we'll go to Boston. So we'll that'll be the revenge game. Going to do it in the Garden.
Hmm.
Derek got to come. Derek got to come and win here in town, and then we'll go over there.
There you go. Well, uh, I guess that's gonna wrap it up. Chris, are you gonna go to the Alamo game?
Oh yeah. So I will be at the Alamo Dome game um at the end of this week. And then I will be I'm looking at it now. I actually get to go next week on Tuesday versus the Nets with one of our schools.
Ooh, that'll be awesome.
So what one of them will be the calm, probably going to get our butts kicked by the Nets game and just go and let the kids have fun. And then the other game will be the let's get rowdy at the Alamo Dome game. That'll be fun.
It's exciting. I cannot wait to see what that arena is gonna look like. I'm not gonna be able to be there live in person. I'll be back at school by that point.
Hmm.
Um, so kind of unfortunate that I just won't be able to make it to the game, but it's definitely gonna be exciting to see, you know, see what's gonna happen and just like you're saying, like if it's gonna be hopefully we're hoping, right? If it's gonna be the largest attended game in NBA history,
Yeah.
then that means that, that means that it's gotta be loud. It's
and and
gotta be
and, and I
crazy in
and
there.
I hope that all of the fanfare, all of that stuff is going to be fun, and I have memories of going to see the Spurs play when I was very young in that building. You know what I mean? So all of that is going to be great, but at the end of the day, it's going to feel less great or more great depending on how competitive the game is, right? So, um, I don't want to go see Steph, kick the crap out of us. So, I would love for it to be just semi-competitive. I would love for it to be a fun time. I mean, I'm gonna have fun regardless, um, but it would be great for us to, have some things to yell about.
Exactly. Well, alrighty then. As we wrap it up, just remember that we do go live on Sundays at the 10 a.m.s on the following platforms of Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. All of which you can catch us live during the 10 a.m. But if you can't, then the VODs will be on all three of those platforms shortly thereafter. Make sure that you do follow us on Twitter at Heroes Half Court, where we do talk about the Spurs on the near daily. Anytime the games are happening, we're talking about them, and we love having the engagement from the Spurs community. So don't be afraid to reach out. But with that being said, I hope everybody has a wonderful Sunday. Hey, the Jags are in the playoffs. The Jaguars are in the playoffs, so we are
AFC
happy
South
for them.
champs. Yeah,
We are very happy.
it was it's been crazy to see how many games they're winning off the defense. They've been on a crazy run these past like 4 or 5 weeks or whatever. So, um, yeah, and then we were kind of out and about. So, I was trying to watch a little bit on my phone, walking down the streets and trying to look into the bars and seeing the game happen. And yeah, it was an exciting night. Jaguars Twitter was going off. It was fun.
No, it's super exciting to see a team like the Jaguars get back in the playoffs. We're
They,
happy that
they're,
Damar
they're,
Hamlin.
Oh yeah, yes.
Happy about the DeMar Hamlin situation.
Jags are doing a lot of things that that we hope the Spurs can do, right? Setting good culture with young with and trying to build good habits, and then seeing it turn around. Football's different, right? And the pace of it's different because you only get 16 games or however many games. But you're seeing the things that they were trying to plant at the beginning of the year, and it takes all year, you know what I mean, just to get a shot for a team like Jacksonville, right? And you're hoping that next year it turns into more wins and more consistency and more. So, as a fan of that side and being able to see a lot of it through the Spurs side as well, it's been cool to see Jags put it together for a year, right? So.
Yep. No, it's super exciting to see the Jaguars in the playoffs. Cowboys are playing today against the Commanders. So,
I'll watch that
obviously
one. I'll
hoping
watch that
for
one.
some good dubs. Um, but yeah, with that being said, hope everybody has a wonderful day. Go Cowboys,
All right.
and we are
Bye bye.
out. Peace.